Hi, Andy Amrine from EV True Value Hardware. We're here today with the next segment of our helpful handy Andy tips. So what we're going to talk about today is different bugs and insects and so forth that invade your house. We're going to start with the stink bugs. Everybody is bothered by the stink bugs, and the stink bugs are out in full force right now outside of the house. Come September, October, November, depending on the weather, that's when they're going to be moving back inside. So we're going to show you a new trap from Rescue, Sterling International, an American-made company out of Spokane, Washington, who has put together a very good, high-quality trap that we're going to be able to use outside to trap all the stink bugs and prevent them from coming in. From there, we are going to move on to spraying the foundation of the outside of the house, and in spraying the foundation of the house, it's going to prevent the bugs from coming in the house. And these are going to prevent spiders and ladybugs and ants and all sorts of insects from coming in the house itself. So we're going to try and cover all the bases of the invading insects that get into the house. Well, we're going to start with the stink bugs, because the stink bugs, is like I had said, everybody is bothered by the stink bugs. And to go over a few basic things with the stink bugs itself, stink bugs stay outside all summer long, then they move inside the house, generally depending on the weather change. In the fall, September, October, November is when all the stink bugs are going to go into the house. They go into the house because that's where it's warm. The stink bugs do not like to stay outside where it gets too cold. During the summer, of course, when it's warm, 85, 90, 100 degrees, they're thriving outside. And when the stink bugs are outside, that's when also the female stink bugs are laying about 400 eggs. So if you have one or two stink bugs, they're female stink bugs, and you're going to have 1,000 stink bugs, and then it's just going to keep multiplying and multiplying. And right now there are no real known enemies to the stink bugs, so not a lot of birds are eating them, there's no bees eating them, and the stink bugs are just multiplying, and they're quite a nuisance now over the past couple of years. So, but with our friends here from Rescue, they have made the first stink bug trap. And what the stink bug trap is going to do, this is one that we have put together, and they're very, very simple to put together. After you open the package, it has these fins that are on the bottom. We put the fins on the bottom itself, and this is what is going to help us when we hang this in the tree later on, you'll see. And there's two attractants to it, and with these attractants, the ones that come with the kits itself, they're good for about 2 weeks. But Rescue makes the refill kits. You buy a refill kit, and the refill kit then is going to be good for 7 weeks. So over the course of the summer, a couple refill kits and the entry ones on them, and you're going to be good to go. This little cap, this yellow cap on the top of it, what this does is when the stink bugs are attracted to it and they fly up inside the trap, they crawl up through the trap, come out from the top, and then they get on this slippery surface. They're going to fall down into the trap, and they're not going to be able to crawl back up over this to get back out. When you have the top jar and everything back on top of this, what happens when we have this in the tree, which is where it belongs now, or later on if you have them just sitting in a yard on a post or something, the stink bugs once again are going to come up in it, they're going to get trapped inside of it, and then they're going to rapidly dehydrate. They're going to dehydrate and they're going to die within a day. All the stink bugs that get in here are going to die. Main reason we're going to show you putting this in a tree today is all those little mommy stink bugs that are laying those 400 eggs. The new stink bugs, the baby stink bugs, won't be able to fly for a couple of months. But when we put this in the tree and we have the trunk or the branches touching the green fins, the baby stink bugs are going to be crawling all over the tree. They're going to be just as attracted to this as the adult ones. They're going to be crawling around the tree, crawl up into the trap, because the trap is going to be touching the tree. They'll crawl inside, and they're also going to die. So what we're hoping to do is win the battle against the stink bugs, because we're going to go after them now while they're outside and preventing them from coming inside the house itself. So you have the traps, and then you have the refills, and we're going to be good to go with attacking the stink bugs here outside today. Alright, Stink bugs. What we're going to do on stink bugs, we'll start by opening up the kit, show you how to put it together. It's a nice handy wrap package to keep everything good and secure. The fins are a nice critical part of it. And then inside the packing of the kit, okay, there's all your attractants and some helpful hints here, but basically it's just telling you what to do at what time of year, and it's just a clear jar, and it even gives you the ties for putting it out. Now with the attractant itself, and then this is the cap on top of it. The cap, like I said before, like I showed, what that does is that keeps them, once the bugs are got inside, it keeps them from getting back out. So let's open up the attractants and the cap part for it, and we're going to be good to go here. You got two of them. It's a yellow one and a red one, and then this is the cap for it. There's hooks on the side that you're able to put the attractants, just putting them on the hook and then putting the cap down over top of it, and that's going to keep the attractants from falling off. The whole kit then, just snap it together and screw it together, and then we have our fins. The fins itself just snap to the bottom of the trap. You have 3 of them. And there's even tabs on the bottom that you can lock them together if you wish. And it just makes them a little bit more secure and steady. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the ties that they gave us, and we're going to attach this to the trees. And with the ties, there's a multiple ways you can do it, but you want to make sure that it's not going to fall out of the tree onto the ground itself, because it's going to do a lot better if we're hanging it in the tree. And this time of year, like I said, we want to put them up in the tree here, because in the tree, this is where the stink bugs are living, and also this is where all the babies are crawling around. And this time of year, we want to get those babies before they turn into the big flying stink bugs and getting into the house when it comes fall time. And this company come fall is going to have an indoor version of it, so we'll make another video for you come September showing you the indoor version and where to put them. But what we're going to do is we're going to put this up in a tree, and even if the base of it, and even if it is just sitting, we can hang it this way. And what I'll do is I'll put a couple of these ties together, or if you have string or rope or anything, then you can just tie it around the tree and have it setting up in here. Or if there's a place with lower leaves and branches, we have an area over here that we have a lot of leaves and branches and so forth. And if it's easier for you to reach an area up in here and then just securing it up in a tree area like this, this would be fine also. So we have 2 traps. You don't need 2 in the tree. 1 trap is going to be good for about 30 feet. So 1 per tree is going to be more than adequate. But what I have 2 of them out here, just showing you some different ways, different areas that we can mount these traps itself. But with the easy ties that they give us, this way the trap is in the tree. We have areas that the bugs are going to be able to, the branches are touching the fins, the branches here is touching the trap, leaves and so forth are touching the trap. So this trap is actually fine as it is, in that it is sitting around the leaves, around the branches, and if you're afraid of a big windy area and you want to put a second tie around it, any of that is going to be fine. You just want to make sure the trap is secure, not going to be falling out of the tree, and that trap would be set there, and would be able to check it again in a couple of days just to see how many stink bugs and so forth that the trap has actually attracted. In the 3 days that we've had these traps out on the market, we've sold thousands of the traps itself. Some people are getting hundreds of stink bugs, some people aren't getting quite as many, but it's really all dependent on the area, how many you're used to, how many are living in the tree itself. But ideally we still want to get as many stink bugs into those traps to, once again, come September, we want to keep them out of the house. Now for this other trap here that we have, I'm just combining some of the ties so I can make a loop totally around the tree itself, because the tree trunk, it's a little bigger of a tree, so one tie isn't going to totally reach around it. But let's see how good we did with putting 3 of them together. And it looks like that should be good. And we're going to keep this one more at a trunk level and just resting onto the branches instead of putting it on the leaves itself. So, but either way it's going to be fine, and I just want to make sure that it's good and secure and not coming out of the tree in any of the nice windstorms or rainstorms or anything that we might have. So just be on my way around the tree, connecting the ties, and that trap is set too. So we have the trunk here of the tree resting onto the branches, resting onto the fins, and so any of the stink bugs are going to be attracted to it. They're going to crawl up into the trap and they'll dehydrate, and we're going to catch quite a few stink bugs out of this tree here. But a fabulous way to try and lower the population of this little stink bug that everyone has come to love here in the last couple of years. It has become a problem, especially here in western Pennsylvania. On the other insects, the big deterrents, the things that people like to keep out of the house, are going to be spiders and ants. Spiders and ants freak out people more than sometimes even the stink bugs on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about some different products there are for keeping the different insects out of a house instead of trying to just kill them when you're in the house itself. One of the most popular brands, Ortho, makes a Home Pest Max product. And what this is a chemical that we're going to spray around the foundation of the house, and we're going to create a barrier. We're going to hook the hose up to the jug itself, and when we get the hose hooked up to the jug, we're going to be able to walk around the foundation of the house and create a barrier to keep all the insects out of the house. A lot of people don't like to use the chemicals inside the house, but it's a lot safer to do it outside, so then you're not worrying about the chemicals with kids or so forth. These are a safe chemical, it's a safe product, so you can use this inside the house, but it's better if you never see the bugs inside, everything is just outside. So how simply we hook up the hose to it, we're going to just pressurize the cylinder itself, and then we're just going to walk around and spray all around the foundation of the house to create a barrier, and that barrier is going to be good for 12 months. We're going to walk in front of all the doorways, all the garage door, the entryways, and create a nice barrier that is totally, completely surrounding the house to keep all the bugs out of the house itself. A couple of the other products for the ants and the bugs and so forth, you can also get a concentrated version of what is in the gallons ready to use. The ready to use gallons, of course, are a lot simpler. You're not mixing chemicals, but you can buy them in a concentrated form and mix them in a watering can, mix them in a bucket, mix it in your own pump sprayer, and do it around the house itself. Or another newer product on the market is you could do it organically. Bonide makes a product called Captain Jack's, and Captain Jack's was discovered at a distillery. The leftover products at a distillery, they found that the distilleries were never getting bugs. They figured out it was the leftover products from the distilleries itself. They made this fantastic product, so it is a byproduct from the distilleries, but it is great for killing and deterring bugs itself. And on this container, this is a garden hose hookup container. We can attach this right to the garden hose, just turn on the water and spray, letting the water mix with the chemicals, spraying your entire yard. If you're doing it this way, a day before you're having a graduation party, a big picnic or something, it's going to take care of all the insects that are in the yard. So while you're having your parties, you're not going to be bothered by the bugs and the flies and the mosquitoes and the gnats and so forth. And you're organically going to be preventing them from bothering you for it. This is a product that's only used outside in this form and for spraying entire yards. Alright, now we're going to be doing the foundation of the house. You know, I picked one of the chemicals, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a barrier around the house itself. You know, and the trick is you really want to get every inch of the foundation of the house, whether it's along the block walls, whether it's underneath the deck, whether it's in front of the garage door, the front doors, the entire side of the house. You want to take the time to walk around the entire foundation of the house, and you want to coat every inch of it, spraying on the house and on the ground itself to create a nice barrier that the bugs, the insects itself, aren't going to cross. So with any of the chemicals, you just want to shake up a little bit in case you have any leakage or any of the settlements of the chemical. And then on this brand itself, it has a cap. We're going to pop the cap off and we'll insert the pump head on it. And then you have your hose, and you're just holding the jug in one hand and spraying on the other. It takes a minute for the chemical to start coming in, and then it just easily sprays. So I'm going to crawl around the foundation of my house here, and we're going to spray everything, whether it's along the block wall. And with the hose and the jug, you don't have to worry about getting down on your hands and knees, but what you're doing is you're spraying everything coming up on the wall. And now we're onto the foundation of the house, and we're just going to slowly walk around the entire house, spraying every inch of the foundation so we create a nice barrier to keep all the bugs away. This is a project that isn't going to take too long, but you know, you want to allow yourself probably about a half hour to totally walk around the foundation and spray every inch of it. Especially you want to make sure that you catch areas where you have branches like this, where when you have trees, you have branches near the house. Those are your prime areas that you're going to be getting insects, because there's a lot of insects that don't fly. Most of your ants don't fly, they crawl, but they'll get into the nooks and crannies of a house by crawling up and down a tree and crawling into an area from a tree where it's connecting into the house, into the branches. So you want to get behind these branches, get behind the areas, get right up to the foundation to create a nice barrier that these bugs aren't going to cross. And if you have areas with a lot of trees, it wouldn't hurt to spray up the foundation a little bit, not just down on the ground itself. But the sprays reach a far area, so even if we can't crawl back in there along the chimney itself, the bug spray itself is going to reach those areas. So let's go on the other side of the chimney here. Then we'll move inside the house and we'll set some ant traps. A lot of people just get 1 or 2 ants at a time. They're not looking at spraying foundations, but they want to do something to deter the ants, or they see a couple of trails. A couple of different companies that are out there. Everyone's familiar with the little metal bait traps. They're okay. They've been around a long time. They're not quite as effective as using a product maybe like Terro. Terro is a company that uses borax in their ant traps itself. And what we're going to do is we're going to open up a couple of these traps, just cut them open, set them down, and what these ant traps then are going to do, the ants will come through the traps, taking the chemical back to the nest, wiping out the entire nest. It's a borax-based chemical which doesn't kill on contact, but it covers the ants, and then it wipes out the nest when it gets back into the nest itself. Okay, now we're in a kitchen. The kitchen itself is probably your most common place that you're going to get ants in your house. Whether it's a sweet-eating ant or just the grease-eating ants, the big black ants, the small ants. Kitchens, bathrooms are your most common place that you're going to find the ants itself. And an ant in the house, generally they travel in a straight line every single day. So if you see one ant, chances are if you watch it for a little bit, you're going to see a second, a third, a fourth, and they're going to travel in a straight line to and from the nest all day long. 3 or 4 or 5 times a day, that ant is going to travel in that straight line. So the trick is to find out where that trail is. And if you find the trail of the ant itself, then you're going to win the battle against them. Because if you're just randomly setting ant traps around the house itself, you're guessing. You're trying to guess where that ant is going to be. So find the trail and you're going to be able to find the nest and you're going to take care of it. Now, like we showed, there's a couple different products, a couple ways of dealing with the ants itself. And the ant traps, whether it's your old standby metal bait type traps or the Terro, and the Terro I feel is a better type product because it's better equipped to wipe out the entire nest. And there's 2 ways of getting the Terro. A Terro you can get in a pre-baited type of trap, or you can buy a liquid version of it, which is just the pure chemical, the borax, that the traps have in it. But then what you have to do is on the back of the package, it comes with little squares. You have to soak the paper with the liquid and put the trap down in the spot itself, which is one of the reasons I like the trap for it. On the trap, the liquid, I'm sure you can't probably see it curling around in there, but there's one red mark on the top of it. You hold the trap upright, and then on the dotted line, you just cut the top of the trap open, and what that does, it opens up a hole. And then when we set this trap down, say if you're going to be setting it down on a kitchen counter, you've seen the ants just crawling around the kitchen counter itself. You set this trap down here, and then what is going to happen is that hole that you've cut in there, you're near the trail of the ant. The ant is going to go into that hole that you just cut in the trap, and it is attracted to the chemical that's inside the ant trap. The ant then is going to walk through the chemical in it. That individual ant does not digest that chemical and die. What that ant does is it crawls through the trap and it crawls back out of the trap. Then that ant is going to go back to the nest. That's why it's so critical to find the trail of the ant. When that ant travels back to the nest, believe it or not, ants are one of the neatest, cleanest insects there are. As soon as an ant comes back into the nest, all the other ants in that nest have to clean that ant before it's allowed back into the nest. So as that ant that has gone through the Terro chemical, the borax, is back in the nest, you have thousands of other ants that are going to be eating, licking, cleaning the dirt and debris that's off of that ant. That's when all the other ants are going to be digesting the borax, and it's going to slowly wipe out the nest. People, especially this time of year with all the fruit, that you keep a fruit bowl out in the kitchen, on the kitchen counter. When a fruit starts to get old and age, sometimes you will attract a lot of those real little tiny fruit flies. Fruit flies are something that are hard to kill because you never know where they are. Usually you can just throw out the fruit, but if you have leftover fruit flies, this is a organic based fruit fly trap. There's a attractant that you put inside this little container. Just set it on the counter, and any of the fruit flies that you do have in your kitchen then are just going to be attracted into the container. They're going to get stuck in there, they're going to die, and then it wipes out all your fruit fly problems. On the same basis, there's a pantry pest trap. Now, pantry pest traps work the same way as that fruit fly trap, but it's more for moths and other insects, not counting the fruit flies. It's just a little package, a little container. You open them up, there's self-adhesive strips in there, you put an attractant in there, and then the different moths and bugs are attracted to it. They get stuck inside the wax paper, and it takes care of all the different pantry pests, I'll call them, that are inside a house. Great ways of doing it with a non-chemical based kind of product on it. Everybody's pretty familiar with fly paper. Fly paper is still out there. There's no chemicals to it. You just hang it. Flies are attracted to it and they're stuck there forever. Just try not to put it in a place if you're as tall as I am. I've had fly paper stuck on my head. It's not a pretty sight. From there, Japanese beetles. This time of year, a lot of the Japanese beetles are out. And on the Japanese beetles, this is a trap that you just set in the yard. Once again, it has attractants to it. The Japanese beetles will fly into the trap. They hit the trap, fall into a bag underneath. They get stuck in there, they dehydrate, and they die. So you're not spraying entire areas. There's no chemical base to it. It's just you set up the trap, and it's going to take care of all the Japanese beetles. And last thing this time of year are bees. Hornets, wasps, mud yellow jackets. There's a couple of different main types of hornet and wasp sprays out there. There's a foaming type of spray and there's a regular jet spray. Most people are familiar with the jet spray. When you use a jet spray, it knocks them constantly, instantly out of the ground. So if you're 20 feet up, 30 feet up, but the jet sprays really have no residual kind of effect. Your foaming type ones are a little better acting because they have a longer residual effect. The problem with it is it's not going to spray the 30 feet and it's not as much of a jet stream. It's more of a foam, so if you can spray the nests with the foam one, it has a lot longer of a residual effect than the regular jet streams. So there's instances where you can use the foam and it's going to do a little nicer job. But believe it or not, the best is using a powder. And I know this says a termite carpenter ant. The chemical base that's in this powder, this is just a powder. You open up the top and you puff the jar and you puff it into the holes, whether it's an ant hill, a carpenter ant hill, a termite hill, but it's a fantastic bee killer. And it has a lot longer residual effect than even the foaming bee sprays. So even if on that foaming one it's good for about a week, this one you puff this into it, into the bee trap, into the bee nest, into the ground, the mud wasp, and a product like this you're good for months. The downside of using this is you can see this doesn't spray very far. So you're going to be within a couple inches of a bee's nest when you're using the dust instead of using the sprays itself. So in using this, be careful, know what you're doing because you're getting up close and personal with those bees. Anytime you're using any bee product, you never want to use them during the day. You always want to do it at night. Bees are very active. As soon as the sun comes up, they generally leave the nest. They're all through the neighborhood, all through the yards. So if you're spraying the nest during the day, you're not killing too many of them. Where if you do it at night, after the sun sets, all the bees are in the nest itself. Alright, and that takes care of another segment of our Handy Andy, Helpful Andy tips. So thank you for tuning in and stay tuned because another month we'll do another segment for you. But my name's Andy Amrine from EV True Value Hardware, 412-835-5780. Don't hesitate to give me a call with any of your questions, or if you have an idea for the next segment you'd like to see us do, just give me a call or send me an email. So thank you once again.
Hide and seek? No. Kids often withdraw when their needs aren't being met. So it's up to us as parents to communicate with them. And once they know we care, well, we don't really have to say much at all. From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.